Hello everybody, welcome back to the Elements of Music video series hosted by Zenith Reed Quintet. At the end of last video, we asked you all to answer a question for us related to what we learned, which was the instruments of the Reed Quintet and a little bit about each of our members. Now with this question, we had you try to figure out the two instruments that we're playing in the excerpt of music. Those instruments were the saxophone and the clarinet. If you answered those two instruments, you were correct. Give yourself a pat on the back. Now that we know a little bit more about each of the instruments of the Reed Quintet, let's go over the musical concepts of pitch and dynamics. Now before we start learning about this, us at Zenith put together a little musical treat for you all to listen to first. Enjoy.
Range tells us how high or low a note is, and we use the first 7 letters of the alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, and then G to label these specific pitches. We're going to focus on one of these pitches, and that is G natural, and this is what it sounds like. Next, if we would like to raise the pitch, we would add a sharp sign to it, and that makes it G sharp. And then we can also add a flat sign to it, which looks like this. And that slightly lowers the pitch from G natural to G flat. And then if I was to play them all together as G, G sharp, G natural, and then G flat, it sounds like this. Have you ever wondered what the lowest and highest pitch is on an instrument? I definitely have. Starting on the lowest note of the instrument and then going to the highest note of the instrument, everything in between makes up an instrument's range. And if a note isn't in an instrument's range, the performer is unable to play that note. Now, let's hear the bassoon's range. I'll play from the lowest range of the bassoon up to the highest range of the bassoon.
Now that Wes has taught us about pitch, let's talk about how we create music with these pitches. We place one pitch after the other to create the melodic line or the melodic contour of the music. Contour is the movement between individual notes. This movement can be up, down, or stagnant. We could continue to play the same pitch over and over again. This would be stagnant. This would sound like this. But it can be much more exciting to hear a melodic contour that moves higher and or lower. That would sound more like this. Now that we know a little bit more about contour, let's take a listen to this melody and identify the contour. Remember to use your up, down, and sideways arrows to determine whether the pitch is moving higher, lower, or staying the same. As we can see in this example, the very first note that we have is a G sharp. This G sharp moves to another G sharp, so we would use our sideways arrow for this. We see another G sharp follow, and we would use another sideways arrow. And then we have a new movement here. We actually will use our up arrow to go up to the B natural. After the B natural, we go back to the G sharp, which we would then use our down arrow. If you would like more time to finish this exercise on your own, go ahead and pause the video here, and you will see the results after.
Thank you for that talk about contour, Victoria. Now we're going to talk about dynamics. Dynamics tell performers how soft or loud or intensely or non-intensely to play the music. Without dynamics, music would be very stagnant and boring, not necessarily in terms of contour, but in the energy that we create with it. Here are a few definitions to help us understand dynamics better. First, we have piano. Piano means to play quiet or soft. It is represented in our music by this symbol P. If you add more P's, it means to play more softly. Forte is represented by this F. And like piano, the more F's we have, the louder we get. So what happens if we want to play somewhere between quiet and somewhere between loud? We have a term for this. We call it mezzo. Our mezzo dynamics modify our already existing loud and soft dynamics to get somewhere in between. Mezzo piano means to play a little louder than piano, while mezzo forte means to play a little bit softer than forte, somewhere in the middle of these two extremes. The mezzo dynamics are the bridge between our loud and soft dynamics. So how do we get from one dynamic to another? Let's say we want to go from a quiet dynamic to a loud dynamic. We would use a crescendo for that, and a crescendo looks like this. On the contrary, if we want to go from a loud dynamic to a softer dynamic, we use a diminuendo, and it looks like this. Without dynamics, music would be very boring to listen to. Let's listen to this very boring example of this melody. When we use dynamics, though, we can really put some energy into the music. Let's listen to the same example that now has dynamics added.
Now let's see if we can follow our crescendo and diminuendo. Let's start with a steady beat. You are fantastic!
It's quiz time! Now that we have the basics for pitch and dynamics down, it's time to put that knowledge to the test. Alright, so we will be identifying the melodic contour and the dynamic motion of a musical example that I will be playing for you. Now for the melodic contour, which is whether the pitch is getting higher or lower, you will use your up and down arrows, kind of like how I'm pointing. For our dynamic motion, whether we have one of these crescendos or one of these diminuendos, we're going to use, like I said, we're going to use one of these signs for that crescendo, where the sound is increasing, the volume is getting louder. And we're going to use one of these signs for the diminuendo, where that volume, the sound, is decreasing over time. Alright, here's our first example. Let's go. Alright, let's listen to that example one more time. Listening really closely if the pitch is getting higher or lower, and if that volume is getting louder or softer.
Think you have the answers? Let us know in the comments below, or follow us and let us know on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And remember to join us in our next video to find out the answers. See you soon!